All right, coming back for another installment of the PC card 100 card case, whatever we want to call this thing. I'm realizing that I'm pretty sure it's going to be closer to 120 cards, if not maybe even more. But again, they all fit in the case nice and smoothly. If I feel like I'm compelled to get to exactly to 100, well, so be it. Again, I'm trying to get these things all sleeved and properly safe and come on, this thing. Put it in the hole, Stuart. Does anyone remember that from Beavis and Butthead? Anyway, starting off with the year 1989, Hoops, David Robinson. I will say that David Ratliff of Signed and Slabbed, his rundown of this card on the PWCC 100 list was phenomenal and really just highlights, Hoops came into existence that year. They managed to pull off the coup of all coup and getting Robinson into their set. Just a great story. That card, I really think that this is the card that put basketball cards on the map. Keep in mind, most of the other cards had kind of been released. The 86 Fleer, the 84 Star Jordan, the Dr. J, the Bird Magic rookie, all those things had come out before cards had become like a huge deal. And so the baseball card world took off, and then we had finally a hot rookie to chase in basketball. And then we also had a hot rookie to chase in 89 Score, Barry Sanders. One thing about 89 Score is that Score didn't know how much of it to make, despite having an unbelievable rookie class. Aikman, Irvin, Thurman Thomas, Dion, Barry Sanders. It was kind of relatively underproduced relative to other cards of that era. Due to the borders, it's a super hard card to get in a 10. Now look, this is one of those things where if you are a football fan, I can totally see you having Aikman and Dion and Thurman and Irvin in your case. But for me, I want to keep it simple and have one representative from the 1989 Score set. And this is easily a top 10 all-time football card. A lot of people will put it all-time top 5 in terms of iconic. Just a awesome set, huge moment for the hobby, and thrilled to have that in a PSA 10. Now, I've talked about how some of my cards are a bit of a tip of the cap to certain aspects of the hobby or technology or brands within the hobby. This card is a tip of the cap to brick and mortar baseball card stores. The 1989 Pro Set Santa Claus. Now, a lot of people are very familiar with the 1990 Pro Set Santa Claus because that was in packs. It's sort of like an SP hard to pull insert. This card was sent to dealers with a Christmas card. So this was a card inside of a Christmas card that went to dealers. It went to card shops as a thank you. And for that, because it was just loosely put in a Christmas card, getting a this card's very rare, but getting a PSA 10 is super rare. And the founder of Pro Set, he inserted himself. There's a series of these Santa Claus cards, and he put himself in each one. There he is in the background there. Can kind of barely see him there. In the mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s, the brick and mortar baseball card stores is how we built our collections. Obviously, shows were a huge deal, but your local card dealer was really your source. You'd get your Beckett, you'd pick up the new packs, you could buy, sell, and trade. And, I'll say that there's a handful of very memorable baseball card dealers who positively influenced my collecting career. And so this is a tip of the cap to them. In particular, Dick, who was it North Bay Star Cards in Petaluma, California. I can't remember his last name, but Dick was always super generous with me, would always give me free packs, and just a great guy. And actually, I saw that he'd passed away a couple years ago, and I found his son on LinkedIn and just sent him a note just telling him what a positive impact his father had on my life and my collection. And he did share that, he did get a lot of that. He did hear from a lot of strangers who were collectors. So, to those card dealers, those card shop owners who are going about it the right way, growing the hobby, doing all that stuff, tip of the cap to you guys. And I'd love to hear from any of the dealers who had shops when this card was mailed out. So not a lot of people are going to have this on their iconic list, but the way I'm curating my collection, I do want my case to be a story about the hobby. So you can't have the story of the hobby without hobby shops. So there you go. Next one up is just another massive iconic card. This was the card that we were all, keep in mind, if we talk 1989, it's just crazy. Now we're getting into 1990. We got 1990 score, Bo Jackson. Just an unbelievable image. Bo Jackson, I believe, is just still sort of underappreciated. Now, Bo has an issue. He doesn't like signing this image. He doesn't like signing these cards because he doesn't think he got his fair cut. What's ironic is if he just said, look, he could make his money by just charging a huge premium to sign these things. Say, hey, look, you want me to sign the Bat on Shoulders card or poster? It's $500, and 1,000 of them would get lined up. So if Bo Jackson, if you hear this, start signing this card. Just charge an arm and a leg to do so. The thrill of pulling this out of a pack, man, was something else. Now, here's a card that I think might be making its first appearance on my particular list, and I've gone back and forth with it. 1990 Leaf, Frank Thomas. Now, the 1990 Leaf, man, this is when we started seeing, we got the 1989 Upper Deck, then Leaf came out in 1990. We started this series of new brands emerging, and 1990 Leaf was a big deal. The Leaf brand was somewhat familiar to us because we had heard, we had heard of Leaf because it was the Donruss in Canada, just like OPC was the tops in Canada. So the Leaf brand was sort of familiar, the super premium design, the metallic foil, and this was certainly the chase card in that set. So I will say that, again, this is a borderline card for me, but in telling the story of the hobby when I was a kid, this was an infinitely important moment. And I also think that this one, the first times I remember, they had Series 1, and then by the time Series 2 came out, it was just, the pandemonium for Series 2 was really high. And was this in Series 2 or is this the last card in Series 1? Either way, huge moment for the hobby, huge set. Now, the reason I have a hard time having that card in here is because there's another Frank Thomas card in the set. And truth be told, I might not, if push comes to shove, and if I'm forced to cut the list to 100, I'm probably pulling out the 90 Leaf Frank Thomas, mainly because as much as I like Frank Thomas, I just don't think he warrants, 2 spots on the iconic 100 list, because this card undeniably does. I don't think you can tell the story of trading cards without talking about error cards. Error cards have been a chase for the hobby for forever, and I do think that there's some ones that really stick out, like 89 Upper Deck reverse negative Dale Murphy, the Juan Gonzalez reverse negative, the Barry Bonds Michael Ray, there's Barry Bond, Johnny Ray. There's a handful of really famous era cards. But for me, this was just sort of the big one because the mystery around it and how it was sort of, it was obviously a corrected error. It was a printing plate issue, and how it was how it was distributed and people chasing these things like mad. So, for me, this is the card represents, and I also think that Frank Thomas, of all the error cards outside of the Johnny Ray, Barry Bonds, I think this is the most significant player to have a real heavy duty error card, and it's also extremely valuable. Now this card I probably don't include in the 100 if push comes to shove, but same year, 1990. The pandemonium and mystery around this card and how it was distributed was just really high. There was just a lot of curiosity about this. And I couldn't imagine what a signed one of these would go for. So George Bush, people knew that he loved baseball, played baseball at Yale. There's a famous photo of him and Babe Ruth when he was playing it, when George Bush was playing at Yale. And he was given cards to give out to visitors to the White House, and apparently those have a really high gloss on them. But then there's the non-gloss version that made their way out of the Topps factory. So for me, it's listed as altered. I think it's just because it's got such paper loss on it. There's real loss of paper on the corner, loss of paper on the top. For me, I don't care what the grade is. I just, it's a super rare card. Again, probably not iconic, so if push came to shove, I might pull this out of the list, but it fits in the case. It tells an interesting part of the hobby story. And when I was a kid, when I was in the pinnacle of my collecting, the allure of this thing just off the charts, just totally off the charts. Next one. So I talked previously about how I did not have the Reggie Jackson rookie, even though I do think that the Reggie Jackson rookie certainly worthy of iconic status, but I wanted to represent Reggie in the case with a different card. And this is, generally considered the first pack pulled autograph, numbered to 2,500. And what's unique about this, I actually do think that Reggie, based on the writing, I actually do think that he hand numbered these. This is a very strong exemplar in an 8-9. And again, if you are collecting in this period of time, the absolute pandemonium about getting these Reggie Jacksons. Let me tell you something. You might think, 2,500 is a lot. You have to understand, you could buy Upper Deck in gas stations. You could buy you could buy baseball cards in bookstores, 7-Elevens, baseball cards. The print run of these things is just really, really hard to comprehend. So I don't know. This is probably one per, maybe like 10,000 packs. Pulling these things was impossible. So again, what we're seeing here, like a lot of these cards are more about just like, if you weren't around when these cards came out, you probably can't fully relate to there was no internet, there was no Twitter, there were no message boards. So it was like folklore. And like when you would, I don't know if I ever saw this card as a kid. I don't know if I ever saw this card until the internet became a thing. So for me, this era, we're dealing with the 1990s. The next one, here's another premium set that was released and caught the collecting world by storm. 1990 Skybox. So again, we're dealing with some cards here that might not be iconic to other people, but to me, and I imagine a lot of people that were collecting in this era, the hype around Skybox was insurmountable. And Jordan was one of the key cards. Actually, David Robinson was the key card, but it was a second-year card because he had the 89 hoops, so I didn't want to include that one. It was kind of like the first ever, like, computer graphic design, like, computer colors. Oh, look at that, the basketball streaking. And I also love the back photo of him playing golf with a wooden driver. So again, maybe not iconic to a lot of people. And it's funny, this stack is worth, I mean, so I guess it's, yeah, we only have one, well, I guess the George Bush. There's basically, this might be the least valuable 10 spot when we're getting the 10th card in the entire box. But to me, like, they probably bring up the most nostalgia. I probably have the strongest, fondest memories of this kind of this era and this particular pile of cards. And we're going to stick with another brand that emerged kind of out of nowhere. Action packed. Okay. You can kind of see it. These were like 3D cards, you know, like popping off the image. You got the little R for rookie symbol. So the Emmitt Smith action packed rookie. I also love space for autograph on the back of the card. Yeah, right. I don't know what to say. Like, I understand this is probably not in people's top 100 iconic cards, but for me, action packed was a huge deal. It was like, because they were thick cards, I think you got like 3 or 4 cards to a pack, and like that in of itself made it very special. So action packed was a huge deal as a kid. All these sets, think about this. This is not like today we have Topps Chrome just crapping out random variations of itself every day, it seems. This was not variations of sets. We had new and exciting brands coming onto the scene because sports cards were so immensely hot. Now, look, in all fairness and truth be told, the right Emmitt Smith card, I think in terms of like, you know, you want to talk about iconic. I mean, now thankfully I do have I have an awesome signed version of this card to share, but the 1990 score supplemental. This was, this card still has a lot of value, but like, and I've got it inscribed the America's team. This is probably Emmitt's more iconic card for sure. But to me, I really wanted to have a tip of the cap to action pack. So that's why that's there. But 90 score supplemental was a huge deal. And I will say that, like, again, I love what PWCC, I love what Adam did. I love that they did that they did the list of 100 iconic cards. But there were no 1990s Cowboys in there. Like, let me tell you something. When the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls, the hottest cards in America, it was not Michael Jordan. It was not Barry Bonds. It was Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin, you know? So I just feel like when you got to start to look at these cards in the context of when they came out, this was the hottest card in the hobby when they were winning Super Bowls, undeniably so. So I just don't think that you can talk about, because keep in mind, it's not just like, well, what's the hottest player now? What's the hottest card then? It's that like hottest card during one of the absolute most largest growth period of time in the hobby. It's kind of like the Luka 2018 Prism, right? Like one of the reasons the Luka 2018 Prism and the Zion 2019 Prism have so much significance is the hobby was like in the stages of booming again. So for that reason, it's why 89 Upper Deck Griffey, it's why 90 Supplemental Emmett, it's why the 90 Skybox, 89 Hoops David Robinson. It's not just that they were like the hot cards of the time. They were the hottest cards during the hottest period in the hobby. So that's why I think they deserve, you know, unique recognition and why they're uniquely special. So we are signing off that edition, that pack of 10, and we will do another video here shortly. Alrighty, we're in for our next installment of 10 cards from the iconic card case, and we're starting off number 61. We're going to get to number 70, but the back end of this is where the waters are very muddied for me in terms of my what's going on, more or less. But we'll get right in. Oh, shoot. I have to get my sleeves, so I want to sleeve these bad boys up. So All right, so we talked about how late 80s, early 90s was a great period for kind of innovation in the space, and we kept seeing new brands emerge. And 1989, we saw Upper Deck. 1990, we saw Leaf. And then 1991, we saw arguably my favorite, Stadium Club. And Stadium Club is just so cool on so many levels. The focus was on photography and cards that really stand out for me. And there's a couple bangers from 91 Stadium Club. There was no way 1991 Stadium Club was not going to be represented in my case. There's no way Stadium Club in general was not going to be represented in my case. And again, I can totally understand how people could argue that this is not an iconic card. But man, again, if you put yourself in the time and place, Stadium Club was blowing minds, quite frankly, with the photography and the creativity. So I will say that 89 Upper Deck and 90 Leaf were like higher quality cards, but 91 Stadium was the first time we really saw like a high UV gloss. So for that reason, golly, just what a great card. So there we go. Now you want to talk about cards and time and place and memories and hype and excitement. And keep in mind there was no internet, so a lot of times you did not know certain cards were in certain sets until you saw them or heard about them in Beckett. And this card was absolutely a hot commodity. Michael Jordan in Upper Deck baseball from that one day he took batting practice with the team. And I will say a couple things. I love the design. I actually think it's one of the better photos of Jordan. It's just well cropped. Clearly he's doing batting practice. Like we kind of know the moment. And this card, this card really stands out for a number of reasons. And it was maybe one per every 3 or 4 boxes. I mean, it was definitely a harder card to find than a lot of people realized. So if you were collecting cards in the early 90s, you remember the excitement that this drew. And then when Jordan retired to play baseball, yes, they got some great 1994 cards of his in sets, but this card went like nutty because of that. So again, for those that obviously, I think any generation can appreciate this card, but this card means a lot more to the people who are actively collecting when it came out. And I think that can be said for, quite frankly, a lot of what you're seeing. Next up, the Diesel. 1992 Upper Deck card number 1. This is the number 1 draft pick card, right? So you had the trade card. This is the pack pulled one. So I do love the trade card. I do love all aspects. The fact that like they wanted to have the number 1 draft pick in the set. They couldn't get their rights to them, so they had to do an exchange card. But this was one of the ones that was actually, because the trade card says, trade card up here. This is the number 1 pick. Super tough grade. Upper Deck, even starting in 1989, the triple exposure was sort of their calling card. No pun intended. 89 Upper Deck. Nolan Ryan, there's a triple exposure. There's a Jim Abbott triple exposure. So I do like the tip of the cap for the Upper Deck being the Upper Deck Shaq rookie being a triple exposure. Love the Diesel. I think the Diesel's wildly underrated for a number of reasons. The Shaq pumps in the photo. I mean, just an awesome card. And we're going to, kind of follow up with we had started seeing insert sets, and insert sets had kind of been around for a little while, but man, when we talk about desirability and like, without question, Beam Team. Beam Team really was a different animal. And having Shaq in this insert set, the entire Beam Team's kind of become an iconic sort of brand and name recognition, and just, and I mean, this looks like it's a card that was designed by the kids from Saved by the Bell with all the lasers and the great colors and stuff. So, and look, I have it in here somewhere, I think, but like, you know, now that we're in 1992 Ultra. So like, man, I could talk about the Ultra All Rookies card for Shaq, the Ultra Rejectors card for Shaq. I mean, it's just, man, I feel like I definitely feel like I could do another Shaq from his rookie year and maybe a tip of the cap to Ultra, because you know, and also like, you know, the Magic All Rookies. I mean, like, look, the basketball card market really changed with Shaq. And we saw a lot of innovation in terms of inserts and brands to capitalize on Shaq. So we had all this, like, baseball built the market, and then kind of Shaq and basketball kind of capitalized on the market. So Shaq's legacy in the hobby is really underappreciated. And we talk a little bit about like what we've seen from other players, but Shaq is a tentpole figure in the hobby because of the sets and brands that emerged to capitalize on his immense popularity. Now, a tough, you know, speaking of Shaq, you know, I do want to have Topps Gold represented. What people take for granted is that the Topps Gold parallels they're the first ever parallels in sports card history. Considering how meaningful parallels are to today's hobby, the fact that 1992 Topps Gold was the first ever gold parallel, ever general parallel, you know, I did want to tip my cap. So I've got Jeter in here for the 93 Topps Gold. And I will say this is why I really believe I could have 100 cards from the 80s and 90s, because you know what also? I think the Shaq Topps Gold deserves a place in the case. I skipped over 92 Bowman. You know, Bowman came back in 89 with the tall format Griffey, but 92 Bowman is really when we saw the prospect cards. So like the 92 Piazza, the 92 Mariano Rivera. I mean, strong arguments can be made for Bowman. And like, I do think that like that Renaissance Bowman, when you just start thinking through this stuff, you're like, man, it's really hard to pare it down to 100. So, you know, and I skipped over 92 Topps Gold Shaq, skipped over 92 Bowman, Piazza, Rivera, which is heartbreaking, you know, but again, you've got to make some cuts somewhere in the line. So Topps Gold is represented by Derek Jeter. Now look, we talked about, again, 89, Upper Deck comes out. 1990, Leaf comes out. 1991, Stadium Club comes out. 1992, Flair Ultra comes out. 1993, I talked about how we saw, we started to see a more premium card stock. We started to see a more glossy printing technology. Well, 1993 SP really changed the game. We started to see this real high-end foil, and like the way the players pop off their respective cards because of it is just wild. And therefore, obviously, this is a super hard card to grade. I one day wouldn't mind owning a 10 just because of how rare it is, and I think it's important in the hobby. But SP, I feel like you got to have SP in there just from a tip of the cap to the technology and the brands. But the 1993 wasn't done, you know, and my 1993 is the first ever Michael Jordan refractor. And I just think that this is just such a significant card. Now, look, you could argue 93 Griffey refractor, 93 Nolan Ryan refractor. The point is, you know, you could do 93 Penny Hardaway because it was a rookie. You're going to do 93 Shaq refractor as a second year. Bottom line is you got to have a 93 finest refractor. If we're talking about iconic sets and iconic innovations, it's just wild to me. So again, real focus for me is on the history of cards, technology, and brands. So like, I'd say that, you know, this is a shout out to just Topps Gold. This is a shout out to SP. The Drew Bledsoe SP kind of changed the game in a lot of different ways. This is the shout out to any 1993 refractor, you know, just so happens that Jordan's Jordan, and this is a highly recognizable and desirable card. Now, this is a big one. You know, we're talking pack pulled autographs, and we're talking people going freaking nuts. I mean, Mantle Griffey, dual signed. And I will say that like Upper Deck made it very confusing that there were dual signed ones. There were ones only signed by Mantle. There were ones only signed by Griffey. There were ones that were then signed by Griffey after the fact. You can tell that this is one of the, this was signed just due to, you can just tell by the era, the period of his signature, the era of his signature, and the fact that it's like that thinner black. So, I mean, you know, tip of the cap to, I got the Reggie Jackson here as the first pack pulled, but like when you talk about, and here's the other thing too, a lot of these cards were like big money when they came out of the packs. Like this thing was big money, like right out of the gate. I mean, this was one of those cards where there's no playing around. Heavy hitters wanted them. And this is just, and then what's funny is like the card kind of like, it felt like it kind of like fell out of people's purview for years until recently. But if you were opening wax, if you went to card, just seeing one of these bad boys in person was a huge deal. So that's, you know, to me, that's just a super important card to the hobby. So there we've got 4, 6, 8. All right, so we got, and this is where, all right, so this is where things just get tough, okay? Because Allen Iverson has, and like, look, like there was just some real jockeying. So what I'll do is, so here's the, okay, we're about to disclose a major pickup, okay? This is not a card I've shared on here before, because I just picked it up, all right? So before I picked up that card, I had this in here to represent Allen Iverson, and I had this in here to represent Kobe. And this is a very underappreciated Kobe. It's a Pop 8. I think it's Pop 8, maybe less, right? His 1996 Finest. And one of the reasons I really like the 1996 Finest is because when it came out, like Finest was what everyone wanted. Chrome was kind of an afterthought. So if you were actively ripping wax and collecting, the 96 Kobe Finest was by far, or 96 Finest in general was by far a bigger deal than Chrome. It wasn't until like later that the Chrome became a bigger deal. So, but, you know, so I'll go ahead and show it now. I had to do it. I had a 9 in here, and it just didn't sit right with me. So I had to pick this up. It's a gorgeous copy. Gorgeous copy. And I just felt like, look, if we're talking iconic cards, you know, right? So, all right, so I'm probably going to move the Finest because it's just so high-end and it's really hard. I mean, maybe I keep it in the case. I'm not. This is why we're over 100 cards in here, okay? But again, you know, so what I've done for Iverson is I'm going to have him represented via the retro refractor. Now, again, there's other Iversons I can go with. There's, you know, it's just got to have Iverson in the case. And Bowman's Best was a big product too. This was the first year of Bowman's Best for basketball. I'm almost positive. Yeah, And like this concept of like the retro refractor, and he's wearing a throwback uniform. I mean, this is a very hard card to find. So like, I wanted to have a tip of the cap to Bowman's Best, and I wanted to do it in a very unique way. Doesn't mean that this is like iconic in of itself, but it's just like, what do you do here, right? I mean, I'm maybe thinking that like ultimately, and I guess yeah, it's funny. Signed and Slab just said, I'm trying not to read the comments. It's Credentials Iverson. Like you got to have the EX2000. So yeah, ultimately, I think Iverson becomes the Credentials. It's funny. Signed and Slab literally took the words out of my mouth. You know, and like, I'm telling you, that's why the 100 card case, people think it's limiting. It is not limiting. It is not limiting. I mean, it actually really opens your eyes to how you want to curate things. And it's like, you know what? I add this mofo. It's like a game of chess. You add this and it changes like the next, it like changes the next 4 or 5 cards, right? So I guess David's right. I got to get an Iverson Credentials. I think you got to have EX in here. Bowman as a brand is represented in the case in and of itself. Just Bowman is. You know, and again, I don't have the 2001 Pujols, but I've got Trout. I mean, it gets tough, right? Like it really gets tough. So what I'm going to close with is, you know, you can see how like I'm showing you more than 10 cards, but here, like I can make decisions, right? Like I can make decisions. I mean, they're all going to stay in the case for now. I mean, just look at this. It's like, it's just. Oh, and the other exciting thing is I did have the Iverson PSA 10 of this until recently. The Iverson PSA 10's a pop 3, and I sold it to help finance my Jackie Robinson debut ticket, you know? So, but I did want to close. So, I mean, like, it's like choosing what kid are you going to throw out of the house? Which kid do you love more? I mean, we're talking 96 basketball. We're talking Kobe Iverson. I mean, this is where curating a collection becomes so fun and can be debated. We could have like a scholarly conversation about 1996 basketball cards for probably like a 3-day conference. You know, we could talk about 1990 and 1991 sports cards for weeks on end, right? Like, I mean, that's what's so amazing about when you start thinking about the significance of some of the technology and designs and brands and the scarcity of some of these things. Because some people might say, like, because a lot like the EX Credentials are numbered to $4.99, I think. We never saw them. We never saw them. Some of these, like the really rare Flair showcases, you never saw them. This was pre-internet. They didn't show up. So they were things of like folklore. And guess what? A lot of them are buried in people's binders. You know, like it's just mind-numbing. But I'm going to close this segment with a card that, because we got to have Flair. For me, Flair, when Flair came out, right? So 1993, we have SP and we have Finest. Then 94 Flair comes out. Do y'all remember Flair? Flair came, the cards were thick, super high gloss. They came in a cellophane wrapper inside of a box that was then shrink wrapped inside of another box. The packaging for Flair was off the charts. Like, so if you collected when I collected, you can't not tip your cap to Flair. And so this is not a 94 Flair, you know, because 94 Flair is basically all base sets, right? Like, they didn't get into the parallels and inserts and stuff until later. I mean, you could talk about the Flair's. Well, actually, I'll just get into it now. So I have this in there sort of to represent the 1990s inserts. But I think I've got other one anyway. Look, flare, die cut, the Griffey, the Griffey hot gloves. I mean, we're talking about some crazy shit, So a card that to me is just stunningly beautiful is Class of 96. I'd probably chop off a finger for a signed version of this if it looked really clean. I mean, I've got a signed Iverson. I should probably pull it out. It's gorgeous. We see so many horrifically designed cards, particularly now. I mean, if you can honestly look me in the face and tell me that this isn't painfully beautiful to you, I mean, and again, I do think the Kobe is really striking, but the Iverson looks good, the Ray Allen looks good, the Abdul Rahim. This is such an underappreciated set, in my opinion. And I wish I would have bought more of them before I probably just, once people know how to turn them on. I actually do have 2 of the Kobe's thing by accident. But golly, like this is when you're like, firstly, this is when you can appreciate raw cards. But a card like this, I think you've got to have it encased to appreciate. But I'm just telling you, I mean, 96 basketball. I mean, I mean, I gotta show him. I gotta show him before I sign off. But like, I think I'm probably the only person in the world that has both of these. I think I might be the only person on the planet who owns both of these. Just because this one's so low pop. This one's so low pop. But, I mean, it's like, they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. It's just, I mean, I'm giddy. I'm like a kid again. They're such beautiful cards. They are just gorgeous. They are just gorgeous. It's just, and oh my goodness. I mean, it's just, oh brother. I could go delirious talking about this stuff. But anyway, to wrap it up, I pulled out the wallet. I picked one of these up. It's one of the reasons I'm selling a bunch of stuff. You're going to see another big card that justifies why I'm selling a bunch of stuff. But look, I had to get it. Look, and I'll tip my cap. The market's come down so much. I didn't want to just see this thing springboard back. Gorgeous copy. So when I'm selling stuff, it's not because I'm on the verge of homelessness. If I'm on the verge of homelessness, you'll see a lot more stuff getting sold at a much faster pace. It's just more that, like, I just don't believe in keeping everything. I think that you've got to cycle through some stuff, or you just become overexposed, right? So anyway, the last 30 cards are probably where, like, the heart and soul of me as a collector really live. It's kind of starting like that 86 Sports Flicks vibe and then getting to 96. Think about 1986 Sports Flicks through 1996 Topps Chrome. It's only 10 years. It's only 10 years. And we have things like the Nolan Ryan tuxedo card. 1986 to 1996 in the hobby is just pure buck wild. 89 Upper Deck, 1990 Leaf, 1991 Stadium Club, 1992 Fleer Ultra, 1993 SP, 1993 Finest, 1994 Flair, then 1996 Topps Chrome. Oh my goodness. It's crazy. We haven't seen innovation think about the last 10 years in the hobby. It's gotten worse. We went from game used patches to Dick's Sporting Goods patches. Like, we need to take this 10-year period, 86 to 96, and be like, holy shit. These people were focused on growing the hobby, making money in the hobby, but we have the legacy of these phenomenal products and brands and technologies that live with us today. Man, golly. So, anyway, if you're between the ages of, like, let's just say 38 to 48, 38, I mean, you feel it. You know it. So, what's that beeping? Probably set off some smoke. I probably set off a smoke alarm. It's getting so hot in here. I love this card. I love them. Those cards, they just speak to me. So, finished at number 70, although technically you'd see I'm on like card number 74. I just can't decide. And we are back for another edition of a reveal of cards from the iconic 100 PC card case, whatever I want to call it. Now, kicking things off, I showed this card in the last video. Kind of a tip of the cap to 1990s inserts. I'm going to kind of come back to this because I just don't know if it's really in the case or not. So anyway, we will kick things off with a card that is undeniably in the case for me, and that is the Tiger Woods 1996 SI for kids. To me, this is much a representation of Tiger Woods as it is SI for kids cards. I mean, for those of us that were around when SI for kids came out, I think the first edition was probably 1990. Man, it'd be interesting to figure. I need to go back and look who's on the first ever cover of SI for kids. But when they started putting cards in them, it was just awesome. So this was after I was actively collecting SI for kids or getting SI for kids, but nonetheless, I loved the cards. I guess so. 1992. There's the Cheryl Swoops. Mia Hamm has one from 92. So anyway, so there were cards in SI for kids, at least as far back as 92, and we loved them. So, tip of the cap to Tiger, tip of the cap to SI for kids. What I love about this is that, it's before he turned pro, it's the U.S. amateur, hat, so it's really well dated, and, unlike some of his other cards, the date on this feels much more like a Tiger Woods rookie than a card we will get to. Now, here we have, we talked about I talked about 1990s inserts and their significance in the hobby. And one thing I'll say is 1990s inserts are significant. I don't want to downplay that. But their values didn't really take off till the last 5 to 10 years. I don't think we fully appreciated them. I love the Tim Duncan for a couple reasons, because it's the Duncan Go Nuts subset, and I love that it's Tim Duncan. So we have Duncan and Duncan. I also like that it's a clear card, it's a plastic card. So this is kind of a tip of the cap to, cards made out of non-cardboard materials, of which there's a decent number of them. So you got the Flair Hot Shots. You've got the Duncan Go Nuts. I mean, there's Jambalaya. There's the EX Credentials. I'm getting stumped now just because I do have a bit of a gap of expertise of 1990s inserts. Beam Team. But anyway, very important to the hobby. So, would I one day kind of go, off the rails a little bit and go for one of the really high-end, super rare 90s inserts? Maybe. But I do think that they're pretty expensive. But when you think 1990s, you got Penny in the blue alternate jersey, the die cut Flair, and then you got The Dunkin' Go Nuts clear acetate card, just a lot to love. So now this was, I don't know if this is the first time we saw serial numbered on the front of a card, but this rookie set was a very big deal when this came out. The 1998 rookie set, we talk a lot about the 1996 rookies, but 1998 was a big rookie class too. And this set was, I guess SP Authentic was around, and SPX was around, but it really felt like 1998 was when these things kind of got elevated to a much higher level. Like SP Authentic became a little bit more scarce. So love Dirk. But this is sort of here to represent, it could be a Paul Pierce Topps Chrome rookie. It could be a Vince Carter SPX rookie. Shout out to the 1998 rookie class of Pierce, Vince Carter, and Dirk, because it wasn't just that they were great. They all played. They had really long careers, and they had many great moments, and they're very memorable players. So this is kind of a tip of the cap to that draft class and kind of the innovation we saw in that period. Now, a guy who could have a handful of cards in here, and we just showed an SP Authentic, but here's another SP Authentic. We got the Peyton Manning, but it's not just any Peyton Manning. It's the die cut numbered to 500. So the Peyton Manning Contenders is a uniquely hard card. I do think that Contenders is important. We're going to get to another Contenders. What I do love, I'll talk about Contenders when I get to that card. But anyway, Peyton Manning had a ton of great cards. I would say that I'm not 100% set in stone of this being my Peyton Manning. Like the Dirk Nowitzki, representing his draft class, Peyton Manning also had a guy by the name of Randy Moss in his draft class. And, by the way, I've owned the Manning PSA 10 Chrome Refractor. I've owned the Moss. I've owned the Moss EX2000. I might even have that. But anyway, again, this is where things get really hard. It gets really hard to narrow down players, narrow down cards. But Peyton Manning absolutely deserves a big spot. Much like Shaq in 1992, we saw a lot of football brands kind of emerge as a result of Manning and Leaf, Ryan Leaf. So kind of a big moment in the hobby, a card you don't see every day. Again, serial number to 500 back in 1998 is very, very rare. I'm supposed to be sleeving these up as I go through them. Next card up is kind of a tip of the cap to 1990s inserts, although it's very late 1990s. This card maybe isn't iconic per se, but I have it in here. There's going to be a couple cards that are in here just because they're so cool. And one of those is this next card. I want to get these things sleeved up. I'm forgetting the main reason one of the main reasons I'm doing this. But this card definitely its stature has definitely grown. So hang on, let me sleeve one more card and then we'll get to this. Something about the Dunkin' Go Nuts is there's a lot of 9s that look better than 10s because there are 10s that have yellowed. This is, you got to have, I think you really want a very clear copy. Whether it's an 8, 9, or 10, I think having a clear copy matters more than just about anything. So, all right. Michael Jordan Final Floor. Just, when this set came out, he was retired. They took pieces of the Utah Jazz floor, and this is a gorgeous copy. It's a BGS 9. I mean, part of me wants to get it crossed over just for consistency's sake, but 10 autograph, I guess, I don't know how many of these there were. Are there like 10 of these, and they're each numbered to 23? But I just feel like You've got, it's MJ's final game, great action shot, great signature. I just feel like this checks a lot of boxes. Again, it's a picture from the game where the game used piece is, and then it's signed. So I don't know if this could be deemed iconic per se, but to me, it's cool enough that it warrants a nice little spot in the collection. So let me sleeve up one more card. Now, I was mentioning contenders before, and here's the contenders that's in my collection. Is the Tom Brady, and I've got a PSA 8 copy of the 10 auto. So what I like, so one thing I'll say is aesthetically, this is one of the few cards where I feel like the autograph almost detracts from the card itself, because the autograph doesn't pop. I mean, if they had done like a fade so that you could like actually have a place to sign easily, I think it's very different. I almost kind of wish that the card wasn't signed, because it's not his current signature, and it's really hard to see unless you're looking at it close up. But contenders is very important, and I think the Brady is kind of the king of the contenders. I like that design the best of all of them, although the Manning design is pretty cool too. Something about contenders that to me really holds up from a collectability standpoint is that because of the way licensing deals kind of worked, contenders is, I think it might be the only brand where you have Manning, Brady, Breeze, Aaron Rodgers, and then the current guys. So like basically starting with Peyton Manning up and through today, all the quarterbacks have a contenders rookie. So that sort of consistency, if you are building a collection of, iconic quarterback cards, I really think that you could kind of stick with contenders and like be good to go, more or less. Something else that I like about that contenders card is that card is one of my best flips, because I basically, basically that card is in my collection for free. Firstly, it was great. The auto is graded a 9 originally, and then I had it regraded, and the auto came back a 10. So it's relative to the rarity of the card. I'm really happy to have an 8-10. But it's a card that like I flipped. I bought it in a 6 and it doubled in value and I sold. I then bought it in a 7 and it doubled in value and I sold it, and then I upgraded it, and then I bought another 7. I got really lucky flipping the contenders Brady. And my logic in flipping the Brady contenders was that we were seeing the market just get so hot and get so high for the championship ticket. So the championship ticket was getting nutty, but the base card was kind of staying flat. So I knew that wasn't going to happen for forever. So I kind of got lucky in that regard. Sticking with Brady, a card that sort of like I've had I don't want to say a love-hate relationship with, but great looking refractor, Bowman Chrome refractor. It's got, the subs are 9.5, 9.5. The corner is a 9, and then the surface is an 8. So, I doubt it crosses to a PSA 9, so I'm fine keeping it in this case. And I do think that sometimes with higher end cards that are refractory, having the BGS holder so you can see the subgrades can actually be, a pretty good asset. I think it can add a little bit to the overall value. Certainly I would value this more than a PSA 8, right? Just because you can see the subgrades and it's got strong subs around centering. Now, where I talk about how I love contenders because of the consistency, and now look, Peyton Manning does have a Bowman Chrome rookie, but I don't, we know the current quarterbacks don't. They don't make Bowman. So the fact that Bowman just doesn't have that much of a legacy in modern football, the way Bowman has a legacy in modern baseball, you know, kind of hampers it a little bit for me. But these are also two of the few Brady cards where he's in actual uniforms, you know, where there's a couple, you know, actual, you know, they're not red jerseys. It's not a Michigan uniform. So the fact that these are like, you know, real uniform picks, and it's also Brady's only refractor rookie. You know, Brady doesn't have a ton of autographed rookies either. These are two pretty significant cards, although I think aesthetically they're not, you know, the best of the best. Now, 2001 baseball and, you know, Pujols and Ichiro, and certainly the 2001 Bowman Chrome is way more iconic for both these guys than these respective cards. But what I don't love about their Bowman Chromes is they're not really prospect cards. You know, Ichiro and Pujols kind of like, they just emerge. Like their first cards were their first years in the league. Ichiro had been playing in the Japanese league, but like Bowman Chrome's really a prospect setup. So I like Bowman Chromes where it's like a couple years before the player really made it. So, but for Pujols, this is really a tip of the cap to E-Tops. E-Tops was a fascinating concept, kind of like the stock market where they'd have IPOs and you could trade them online. I mean, it was pretty advanced for its time. And I do think that, you know, the Pujols being was a rookie, when this IPO'd, it was a huge deal. I also do think the design of these is really sharp. It's a lot like a Flair card, but a little bit different. It's got a little bit different finish to it. And keep in mind, like you'd have to like ask them to ship you the card, and that would sort of like take it out of circulation on the online platform or anything. But E-Tops to me, was a huge innovation and very cool brand. Likewise, SPX. I mean, there's, you know, and Ichiro has a bunch of, you know, I've had other cool Ichiros in the case, but I want to, you know, I think SPX is a super cool, super important brand. And I think there's other SPXs I could have put in here, but I don't know, it just sort of felt right with the Ichiro, because the Ichiro is a lot like the LeBron rookie, the LeBron SPX in 2003. But again, like I could see, you know, again, your preferences and your collection can shift as you acquire things or your taste change. So I do think that these are very good Pujols and Ichiro cards. They don't feel like they're set in stone, right? Like, for example, like this is never not going to be in the top 100 case. I mean, right? Like let's face facts. But like a lot of the other ones are pretty, you know, potentially debatable. So we're going to finish up with another 2001 card, and aesthetically, it's a fantastic looking card. Some people say, well, it's not really a rookie card, but look, this is the first pack pulled Tiger Woods. You got the 10-10, and I think that this card is just awesome. Gorgeous signature, serial numbering on the front. You got the green kind of reference to, you know, green is such a golf color, and it's just gorgeous. I think it's just a gorgeous card. And I will say that, you know, that there's the gold version numbered to 100, and this is numbered to 900. But the problem with the gold version is they have a gloss on it. So it's very hard to find one where the autograph isn't bubbled. So aesthetically, a lot of the golds just don't look good. So to me, and also I actually do think the green, because it's golf, actually looks better than the gold. So this is definitely a heavy hitter type card. It's fluctuated a ton over the last 3 years. I paid a lot for mine, but I don't care because it was a card I wanted. You never know when stuff's going to go up or go down or whatever, go side to side. When you really decide you want a card and, you know, you like the history of it and you're not worried about the financial implications, go ahead and grab it. So now that's card number 80. Although I've shown more than 80 cards, you can see how hard it is to curate and limit yourself. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to watch another segment of my 100 PC card case, where I'm showing off slightly more than 100 cards that go in this case, And the cards in this case are basically untouchable unless I've sold everything else and am in need of a kidney. Having sort of this concentrated approach enables me to have better discipline in buying and much easier plan of attack when I'm selling. When I need to sell stuff, it's not coming from this case. Now, a couple disclosures. The first disclosure is, if you like LeBron James, if you do not like LeBron James, just skip this portion because 8 of the 10 cards are LeBron James. LeBron is, I hate to say he's my favorite player, but he's my favorite player to collect, and I like LeBron James for a number of reasons. But before getting into LeBron Mania, we'll kick things off with Yao Ming. Now, this is a cool card because it's in Chinese, and it's a refractor. Now, is Yao Ming iconic? Is this set of tops iconic? It's really hard to say. I like this card as a tip of the cap. And by the way, yes, I do say tip of the cap quite a bit in these videos because I don't know a better way. It's an ode. It's an acknowledgement of Yao Ming and being a Houston Rocket and being a Hall of Famer. And, there's kind of been some periods of like when we saw a lot of innovation and growth in the hobby. While LeBron brought upon probably the largest swarm of card brands and innovations, the card world was kind of getting ready for LeBron by Yao Ming, and we did see some new cool things emerge when Yao Ming joined the league. So I would say that I think I'm gonna end up showing close to 120 cards, maybe. I'll definitely say that this Yao Ming, push comes to shove, would probably be on the chopping block, for lack of a better term. So we will now get into LeBron Mania, LeBronorama. First up is 2002 Finest, and I love the 2002 Finest because it's got the 2002 date on it. So the reason it has 2002 on it is that this was a redemption. So if you opened up boxes of 2002, 2003 Finest, you didn't get the LeBron or Wade or Bosch. You got a redemption card for the #1 pick. Select XRC is that product. But I do love the fact that it is a 2002 product, and I have a bias towards white suit LeBron draft night. I love draft night pictures. I think draft night's a great moment to kind of capture the start of a player's career. So we have draft night, we have 2002, and it was part of a redemption, much like the Shaq DZ. Now, I might get accused of pumping up the market on this particular card and this particular brand, but next up we have 2003 Ultra Platinum Medallion, numbered to 100. Now, 2 things I'll say. I do have 2 of these, so if you want to accuse me of pumping, so do it. And when I have 2 of something, it means I'm going to sell eventually. I don't want to have 2 of anything for a long period of time. But I'll tell you something. The Ultra Medallion, Platinum Medallion specifically, seems completely overlooked in the hobby. And relative to other LeBrons numbered to 99, and then relative to other subsets and inserts numbered to 99, it's crazy the Platinum Medallions don't get more love. But what's interesting, we have seen a couple Michael Jordan Platinum Medallions really take off as of late. And it's a little suspicious because some of the other really marquee players who have these Platinum Medallions have not taken off at the same pace. So maybe people don't like it because it's like an insert. It's like the Lucky 13 kind of insert set. But I mean, this was his Fleer Ultra rookie. It's numbered to 100. Platinum Medallion, I think, is a great card. And also, where I could see some jockeying coming in is maybe I don't want as much LeBron in my case and I do want to have more Shaq. There's some awesome 1992 Ultra Shaq insert rookie cards. So again, I gotta acknowledge Fleer Ultra as a set, and I just felt like that's a good card to do it in. But again, I'm very LeBron heavy. I love Shaq, so maybe I trade out this Fleer Ultra LeBron in the case one day for a Shaq Fleer Ultra, or maybe there's other kind of iconic Fleer Ultras. Next up is one of LeBron James' kind of better and kind of more significant signed rookie cards. Now, look, Upper Deck did, because they had the exclusive with LeBron, you know, they did produce a lot of sets, and some of those sets have stood the test of time, others have not. But obviously, SP Authentic is a pretty stalwart brand in the Upper Deck stable. So we have the SP Authentic, LeBron James, dual 10s, PSA 10, card 10, auto 10, banger of a card, numbered to 500. So I will say I've got a decent number of SP Authentic in the case, you know, the Tiger. So now, but this, I love this card. And I will also say, like, seeing the evolution of LeBron's signature in these Upper Deck products is also sort of fun. So, like, could I see myself, you know, I've got an SPX. You know, could I see myself one day kind of, you know, playing around and pulling stuff in and out? Possibly. But anyway, just banger card. So another banger that I bought relatively recently, and this is a card I really kind of thought I'd never own because it just got so expensive during the run-up. This card, the Black Tops Chrome, refractor numbered to 500. This was like $400,000. I got mine closer to 140,000. No, look, it's still an exorbitant amount of money to spend on a card, but you know, the fact that I just kind of wrote off owning this card, when the market came back down, I was thrilled to have it. Now, look, what I will say about the case is, like, I do have a LeBron refractor. I've got a LeBron base. So I don't feel like I need to have the base and the refractor, even though they're iconic. This sort of speaks for the Topps Chrome universe. So, there's that aspect. Okay, we talked about draft night, and this is my favorite LeBron photograph. I guess on my computer. So, black border, number to 500, PSA 9. So, something worth noting. Oh. Oh, no, that's not it. Well, anyway, there's only 4 PSA 9s, and there's no PSA 10. So the reason, even though I've got the gold in here, I've got the gold in here, which is numbered to 99. I wanted both, just because I just love them both. You know, I can tell you, based on the math, so this is a pop 7, and this is a pop 4. I can say with some confidence that I'm the only person on the planet who owns both of these cards. So, you know, I know a lot of people are attracted to a lot of the super high-end LeBrons, but for me, Topps flagship is just, you know, in a kind of different element. I will say, like, this, I guess I bought this like 2 years ago from Heritage. Another one hasn't hit the market. So I don't know what Card Ladder says it's worth. I don't care what anyone says it's worth. Like, it's really hard to set a comp when we haven't seen one on the market. So, you know, it's just, again, and then same thing with the 9. Like, what are you going to really say these things are worth when there's not, you know, a great comp set? So I love these. And even though this is not on my Mount Rushmore, I think it's my favorite LeBron. It's even more favorite than the next card, which is on my Mount Rushmore. And this is the single most amount of money I've ever spent on anything in my collection. So major reveal here. You know, this was another card when these things got run up. And again, between, when we're talking 8s, 8.5, 9s in the BGS holder on these things, numbered to 99, I don't really delineate that much between the 8s, 8.5s, and 9s. I just want to really, 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 and I love the patch on it. So, I spent a lot of money on this thing. But look, this was another card I completely ruled out when, when this thing was $1.5 million. Beautiful auto. I mean, it's sort of like, it's like, look at the difference in the autos. It's wild. Holy Grail, Mount Rushmore. My Mount Rushmore, the Wagner, Hannes Wagner, Mickey Mantle 52 tops, and we got the 86 Fleer Jordan, and then this. So my Mount Rushmore is 2 basketball, 2 baseball. It's just, to me, this changed the hobby, this changed the hobby for that reason, and that's why I could maybe see my Jordan, I could maybe see my Jordan Fleer coming out of the Mount Rushmore because of what really changed the hobby. This mofo changed the hobby. This thing changed the hobby. And man, something I read but I didn't believe is these things really do look very different in person. There's just a different aspect of holding one of these mofos in person, and it's a monster. I love it. I love the signature on it. We got a 9.5 centering, 9 edges, 9 surface, and the corners are an 8. And look, knowing how this stuff's packaged, I'm not going to be upset. I'll probably get it re-slabbed. I'm not gonna cross it over to PSA. I do like this label a lot. I think it looks good. But it's got a couple scratches on it. The case has got a little bit of scratches on it. So I want to get it freshened up, and then when I get it freshened up, put it into a new sleeve. Got a new sleeve, and maybe I don't know. This is a motherfucker. This is just a motherfucker. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just, this ain't no middle of the mall shit, I know they pop up a lot in auction, just like the Jordan PSA 10, but you've got to remember there's still people holding this card that are in it for less than $100,000, and if you can make $400,000 on a card, that's life-changing for a lot of people. So I know people criticize some of these cards that come up a lot in auction, but look, you've got to understand there's a lot of people holding these things where they can make life-changing money, and they got to do it. I don't think any of the people who've bought these in the last couple of years, maybe a couple of people have recycled them, but I mean, I do think that we're not far away from this card and the Jordan 86 Fleer 10 just being where they're just in their people's deep PCs. Now look, this is the undercard case. I pray to God I'm never in a position I have to sell this thing. There's a lot of things that would be sold before this. It's an honor to own this card. I know that might sound silly to say that. Just like it's an honor to own my Jackie Robinson debut ticket. There's certain things that I don't take lightly. It's an honor to be able to have the wherewithal and ability to own something like that has this kind of value and that fits in your pocket, and just what it means for the hobby in general. So, shout out to Upper Deck. Shout out to Kev's Cards. Carwin. Shout out to Carwin. He was really the mastermind behind this set. I'm going to tag him this video. And so we're going to close with a card that I desperately want a PSA 10 of. This is one of those cards that I overpaid for. I bought it kind of, I don't want to say at the peak, but I mean, I bought it during a super hot time in the market. But, I really wanted to have a 9. you know, I really, and I do want a 10. So like if a 10 ever emerges, I'm going to be an aggressive bidder for it. And it's the Messi. So, you know, the Messi is an awesome, I do feel like in a lot of ways, I feel like this is like the Mickey Mantle 52 tops. I feel like this is the Mickey Mantle 52 tops. Whereas I do feel like one of Pele's cards is more like the Hannes Wagner. I feel like this is just a great card for a number of reasons. Funny story that I'll close this video with. Oh, and I guess I've got one more card. Sorry. So I guess it was 7 LeBrons. I can't count. 1, 2, 4, 5, counting these rocks. I wonder if anyone knows where that's from. So in this card, I mean, he's what? He's 18 years old on this card, which is pretty awesome. So my business partner was getting into cards, back into cards, and I was like, look, if you know, I don't know what your thought process is, but if you wanted to put $30,000, if you're gonna invest $30,000 into cards, I'd buy one card. I'd buy the Messi PSA 10, and this is back in like December of 2019, and one or two had sold for about 30, and I was like, that's easily a $100,000 card one day, and then what's happened has happened. You know, it's probably a $500,000 card, the PSA 10, and who knows where it could really get to over time. But it was just funny. And I was not as big of a Messi fan as I am now. Obviously, haven't been to the World Cup and stuff. But I hope a 10 hits soon because I'm going to be an aggressive bidder on it. Now wrapping up, and look, this is a card I could see totally coming out of the case. But you know, for me, why I have this in the top 100 is I do think printing plates are really cool. And if we're talking about technology, you know, this checks the printing plate box. I think printing plates are cool. I like how Upper Deck did printing plates for a period of time, right? Like they like put them inside of another card. It's like a printing plate inside of another card. And then they put a sticker auto on it, which is fine by me. So I like this because it's a acknowledgement of printing plates. And this is the black printing plate. I sold the magenta, which I kind of regret. But also, Jay-Z was a sports card influencer 15 years before anyone else. So, you know, now he was a spokesman, but spokespeople are hired to influence. So Jay-Z was a sports card influencer 15 years before anyone else. So this is one of those more kind of oddball cards that, you know, I can't really speak to. It's long-term longevity in my case. But you know what? Since the case easily holds more than 100 cards, it's going to be in there. So, yeah, we've got some more cards to get through. And, you know, this is going to be, you know, we got some more videos to get through.